Hello, you're watching World Panorama with me, Ishan. World Panorama is, of course, all the news that has happened through the world, around the world, through this week. We'll be getting you all the latest on that. We'll be focusing on Prime Minister Modi's three-nation visit. What have been the big achievements? What happened? We'll be updating you on that as well. But first, the headlines we're tracking. Prime Minister Narendra Modi hard sells the India story in his three-nation European tour, addresses key concerns of foreign investors about ease of doing business in India. IMF predicts that the slowdown for China will continue even in 2016. India is estimated to outstrip Chinese economic growth. President Obama removes Cuba from the US list of state sponsors of terror, clears obstacles to restoring diplomatic relations with the nation after over 50 years. Former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton hits the campaign trail after formally entering the 2016 race to become the first woman president of the United States. Right, a focus story which we'll be discussing with a special guest as well. Prime Minister Narendra Modi completed a groundbreaking trip this week. The 9-day tour to three nations, two in Europe and one in the Americas, started on the 9th of April. It was one more instance of the emphasis Modi has laid on foreign relations since he was elected in last May. Now, Modi travelled to France, Germany and Canada. He returned with a clutch of agreements and the visit allowed him to address key concerns about the ease of doing business in India.
A 9-day tour spanning 3 countries, at the end of which the Prime Minister returned home with a clutch of agreements, a lot of goodwill and many takers for his Make in India mission. The tour had something for everyone: cultural programs and stirring speeches for the diaspora, visits to war memorials and bilateral talks that tried to break new ground.
कि आज जब विश्व प्रथम विश्व युद्ध की शताब्दी में गुजर रहा है, तब ये अवसर है शांति दूतों के सम्मान का। ये अवसर है गांधी और बुद्ध की भूमि को उसका हक देने का। वो दिन चले गए जब हिंदुस्तान भीख मांगेगा, ये देश अपना हक मांगेगा।
First up came the visit to France. Before wide-ranging consultations with French Prime Minister François Hollande, there were round-table discussions with French CEOs. The theme everywhere was giving a boost to the Make in India campaign and re-energizing the infrastructure sector. A Nav Pe Charcha on a cruise down the Seine River completed the charm offensive. At the end of it all, the key agreements included an MOU between L&T and Areva to improve financial viability of the Jaitapur nuclear plant project in Maharashtra, MOU for the ISRO on the Indo-French Megatropics satellite, a landmark deal for 36 Rafale fighter ready-to-fly jets, an MOU for renewable energy, agreements to renew cooperation in sports medicine, a railway protocol for a semi-high-speed corridor in India, and an outsourcing deal with Airbus to increase outsourcing in India to 2 billion euros. Modi's next stop was Germany, where the hot topic became his inauguration of the famous Hanover Industrial Fair with German Chancellor Angela Merkel.
Eröffnung der diesjährigen Hannover Messe mit dabei zu sein. Die Hannover Messe als die wichtigste Industriemesse weltweit ist ja Jahr für Jahr spannend. In diesem Jahr ganz besonders. Indien ist das Partnerland und Indien wird mit einer Vielzahl von Ausstellern sich hier auch als Technologieführer präsentieren. Wir werden mit dem indischen Ministerpräsidenten heute Abend auch noch ein Wirtschaftsgespräch haben und ich glaube, der Handel zwischen Deutschland und Indien kann noch verbessert werden, obwohl Deutschland schon der größte europäische Handelspartner Indiens ist.
Both leaders spoke for a free trade agreement between the European Union and India. A joint statement recognized the need for a working group on urban development. Also promised were stronger educational exchanges with collaborations between universities. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So help us understand what the big takeaways, the achievements, and what was this visit all about. We are joined by Pramit Chaudhuri, Foreign Affairs Editor of the Hindustan Times. Thanks very much for coming in to discuss this. As far as Prime Minister Modi is concerned, I mean, this was, recently I'd heard you say that this was a visit to the second countries. He'd done the biggies, he's done the US and the Japan, but this is equally as important, isn't it?
Yes, it is, because these countries provide specific niche areas and are important in various ways. For example, we don't fully trust the biggest countries when it comes to frontline weapons. We obviously can't buy Russian because Russia provides equipment to the Chinese. We tend not to avoid American weapons for frontline fighting because we don't know how close they will become to relationship with Pakistan and China. So we often go to these mid-level countries for our weapon systems, Israel, France. And so France, for example, is a core part of this. The other two, Germany and Canada, of course, don't make weapons or don't make the kind that we need. Germany, on the other hand, is a major manufacturing power. It is actually a bigger exporter of manufactured goods than the United States is, though it's a smaller economy. So therefore, for a Make in India or manufacturing revival, for investment purposes, job creation, Germany, along with Japan and to a lesser extent China, are key partners for exactly this kind of a program. And then finally, we have Canada, which is a big natural resource producer. It has also one of the largest and fastest growing diasporas around the world. It is our primary source of dal. It is it can become potentially a big source of our oil and gas, and it has the potential to become a major mineral resource for a lot of our manufacturing possibilities in the future.
Right. All right. So if you talk about the entire assessment, I mean, how would you call it? Because the medias are always in conflict over how to assess the visit. How would you rate it in terms of the achievements and taking foreign policy forward?
I think he's done a good job. I think he has been able, as I said, these are countries that are important, but countries that are often neglected in India simply because our prime ministers often don't seem to have the time to visit these. So, for example, this is the first time we're having a solely bilateral visit with Canada in over 40 years, despite the fact that Canada has, as I said, a very large Indian presence. It is a country and so a lot of these countries we don't often visit because we end up visiting the same 10 or 15 countries again and again. So I think it's very important that he's done that this time around. He may not visit Canada for a long time after this, but he's done it now. And that puts us on the radar for both sides. It's very important at the highest level to meet because one of the things that you realize in diplomacy is that if you left to the bureaucrats, they often start freezing. They get into little squabbles over this clause, this paragraph, this agreement doesn't work, or we can't do anything, you can't do anything, and it starts to jam up. It happens even with big countries, definitely happens with small countries. So it requires action at the political level, at the highest level, for them to come in and say, turn around to their flunkies and say, just get it done. All right. Because you and I have agreed to this, just get it done. And then I think
that's Modi's stamp as far as foreign policy is concerned. We'll talk about that, but you spoke about Canada, and we'll play out a little packet because this was a key trip for India and Modi, his visit to Canada. It was the first standalone visit by an Indian Prime Minister in over 4 decades. Take a look.
The first Indian Prime Minister to arrive in Canada in a standalone bilateral visit in 42 years. Modi's visit was eagerly looked forward to by the huge Indian diaspora. In fact, the highlight turned out to be his address to the 8,000-strong audience of Indo-Canadians at Toronto's Ricoh Coliseum. It was an event similar to what Modi addressed at Madison Square Garden in the United States last year. A key accomplishment was after the talks with Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper was the agreement for long-term supply of uranium to India. Collaboration in the energy efficiency, oil and gas development and renewable energy, an investment of $2.5 million in 5 health innovations, direct flights from Toronto to New Delhi, agreement on cooperation in fighting against terrorism, 13 MOUs in skill development in agriculture, automotive, aviation, construction, healthcare, hydrocarbons and information technology. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And we have with us Pramit Chaudhuri, Foreign Affairs Editor of the Hindustan Times. Pramit, just before this package, we were talking about Prime Minister Modi leaving a personal stamp on foreign policy. That, it seems, is a key focus. But I was reading also criticism about him and the entire visit. And one of the very senior journalists pointed out that he shouldn't have raised the issue of the scam government, as he said. The fact that you could leave domestic politics behind, but it also seemed to, the domestic constituency seemed to be in his mind in his trip abroad.
Yeah. No, I think when he addresses the diaspora meetings as opposed to the official diplomatic meetings, I would say about 80% of that is really directed for a domestic audience. He always speaks in Hindi. He doesn't speak in English at these diaspora events. I would guess that a lot of the audience are people who are close to or supporters of the BJP. Definitely by choosing Hindi speakers as opposed to South Indians, for example. A lot of these diaspora are South Indian. He's very clearly tilting it towards where the BJP is strongest. And I think it's very clearly partly a lot of it is for a domestic audience. So, for example, in the Madison Square Garden events in America, he deliberately makes a number of U.S. congressmen wait a while before he makes his entry. And for me, I think that was a message to the larger Indian public and to his own party members that, oh, look, the visa issue is now over, the visa ban is over, and the Americans actually, their leadership actually waits for me to arrive. And it's a sort of a message that he's trying to send.
The optics of his visit also in terms of, you had the on the Now Pe Charcha on the river scene. So in terms of the optics, those are also very important for the Prime Minister.
It's like a UN General Assembly speech. When a leader speaks in the UN General Assembly, he doesn't speak to the international audience at all. Nobody even bothers to pay attention. Nobody puts it on television outside of his own country. Even the diaspora events, it's very unlikely that Canadian TV did more than a few clips on this. But it played much more heavily in India than it does overseas. So these are very much for a domestic audience. So yes, you can argue that he perhaps shouldn't have attacked the previous government. But for him, I think these diaspora events are really domestic politics just transferred to a foreign soil.
Interesting point, domestic politics on a foreign soil. We leave it over there. Pramit Chaudhuri, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand the visit of Prime Minister Modi a little better. Thanks so much for that. All right, we'll slip into a very quick break right now, but coming up on the other side, we'll talk about Hillary Clinton as she's confirmed she's in the race for the US presidency. All that and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Here watching World Panorama. Now on to China because it's recorded its slowest growth rate in 6 years. That's at 7%. Now this came in the backdrop of the International Monetary Fund's prediction that Beijing will see its economy slowing down over the next 1 year. The IMF has also predicted that India is likely to outpace China's growth by 2016.
China's economic growth has slowed down to a 6-year low of 7% in the first quarter of 2015. Weakness in key sectors suggested the world's second largest economy was still losing momentum. This intensifies China's struggle to find the right policy mix to shore up activity.
这个短期内这个国内国际调整的格局以及国内这样一个经济条件的尤其是这种调整的格局。
On Tuesday, the International Monetary Fund had predicted that China's growth rate will slow down to 6.3% by the end of this financial year. According to the IMF, China has sharply pulled back after a rapid rise in credit and investment fed a real estate bubble, leaving a sluggish housing market.
I don't think it's a natural part. I think China is facing two challenges. The first one is the one you described, which is a slowdown in underlying growth because it's changing the composition of production between consumption and investment, between manufacturing and services. That has to happen. This is happening. This is very healthy. On top of this, you have what was a housing boom and is no longer a housing boom. And if it turns into a housing bust, then it slows down the economy too much.
The IMF expects the world economy to be moderate and uneven in 2015. The global economy is projected to expand by 3.5% this year. The IMF has also projected that India will grow at a rate of 7%, outpacing China by the end of the financial year in 2016. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now on to US-Cuba relations. After the thaw, Cuba has welcomed President Barack Obama's decision to remove the country from the US list of state sponsors of terror. The decision clears the main obstacle to restoring diplomatic relations between the two countries. But a US trade embargo against Cuba remains a sticking point.
The United States has taken a major step towards restoring ties with Cuba. After enough assurances from Cuba and a very careful review, the United States has decided to remove the country from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. US President Barack Obama said the government of Cuba had not provided any support for international terrorism over the past 6 months. Cuban Foreign Secretary welcomed the move as a fair decision, saying it should never have been part of the list in the first place. Cubans are hopeful that the improved ties will eventually lead to the lifting of the trade embargo, bringing in more foreign investments. It also paves the way for reopening of embassies.
Me parece una buena intención de parte del presidente, buena de su parte, y pienso que Cuba no debería estar en esa lista, ya que Cuba no patrocina el terrorismo, al contrario, ayuda a muchos países.
Muy bien, me parece muy bien para nuestro país, porque bueno, todo va a ser mejor ahora para nosotros, ¿no?
But the decision on the trade embargo has to go through the Congress first. The US Congress has 45 days to consider the president's decision before it can take effect. Many Republicans have been critical of the announcement.
Well, the decision made by the White House today is a terrible one, but not surprising, unfortunately. Cuba is a state sponsor of terrorism, and I think sends a chilling message to our enemies abroad that this White House is no longer serious about calling terrorism by its proper name.
The United States and Cuba had announced a historic thaw in ties 4 months back, further sending out strong signals when Obama met Cuban President Raul Castro at the Summit of the Americans in Panama last week, the first meeting of its kind in nearly 60 years. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has formally entered the 2016 race for the White House in a bid to become the first woman U.S. president. Clinton is the first Democratic candidate to confirm a run for the White House and is considered to be the frontrunner with the party's nomination. But the attacks on the Republicans have already begun.
I'm getting ready to do something too. I'm running for president.
It's official. One of the best-known faces of American politics, Secretary of State, Senator and the First Lady, Hillary Clinton is looking to add one more job to her CV. President of the United States. After months of speculation, Hillary Clinton formally entered the 2016 race for the White House. She launched her campaign website on Sunday, telling Americans she wanted to be their champion. In a video on her website, Hillary speaks about her mission as a number of Americans talk about their hopes and aspirations.
She's an awesome woman with experience. She has that it that's going to make the difference. She's going to drive it home. Everything that Obama started, she's going to finish it. Home run choice for the United States.
I think so. She's worked very hard to get to where she's at. And I believe there should be a woman president. It's time already. And I'm very excited. I'm so happy.
Hillary Clinton went through 2 presidential campaigns with her husband in the 1990s, and she lost her own bid to Barack Obama in 2008. This time, Hillary Clinton enters as the favorite among Democrats, while also polling far ahead of any potential Republican rival now on the scene. However, the Republicans have been unrelenting in their criticism of her, especially attacking her for her handling of a September 2012 attack on a US diplomatic compound in Benghazi and over recent allegations that she had conducted government communications on a private email server.
We're ready for Hillary. We know exactly what to expect. Hillary Clinton represents the failed policies of the past. Does America want a third Obama term?
Hillary Clinton will spend the next few weeks building up grassroots support in the early Democratic primary states. She's expected to hold her first rally, officially kicking off her campaign in mid-May. Clinton has already had the backing of current President Barack Obama, who said on Saturday that she would make an excellent president. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, much else has been unfolding around the world, so here's a quick wrap of the other international news of the week.
Saudi-led coalition airstrikes across Yemen continued all through last week. The Houthi rebels also opened up new fronts. Supporters held rallies protesting against the United Nations resolution on arms embargo. Nearly 1.2 lakh people fled the war-torn country since the crisis started. The strikes reduced many parts of the capital city Sana'a into piles of rubble and debris. US President Barack Obama allowed US Congress to review the nuclear deal with Iran. The role for the Republican-controlled Congress injected a new element of uncertainty into the delicate final stages of negotiations. Iran said that it could not agree to this oversight. Former Nepal Prime Minister Surya Bahadur Thapa was cremated with full state honor on Friday. The five-time Prime Minister died on Wednesday in Delhi at the age of 87. He was suffering from cancer. A day of national mourning was declared after his death. Thapa served as Prime Minister of Nepal 5 times for 3 kings in a career spanning 6 decades. Memorial ceremonies were held on the first anniversary of South Korea's Seoul ferry disaster in 300 places. 304 people, mostly school students, went missing when the ship sank off Jindo Island. President Park Geun-hye promised to raise the sunken ferry at the earliest, fulfilling the demand of the victims.
And shifting gears, time to bring you up to speed with all the sports news that you might have missed this week. Here's all the sports action.
And the Laureus Academy has chosen Novak Djokovic.
World number 1 tennis player Novak Djokovic was named as the Laureus Sportsman of the Year on Wednesday at an awards ceremony in Shanghai. During 2014, Djokovic won the Wimbledon, regained the world number 1 spot and claimed the ATP World Tour Finals title.
Genzebe Dibaba.
The Sportswoman of the Year award went to Ethiopia's Genzebe Dibaba, who has set 3 world records over the last 14 months in the 1500 meter, 3000 meter and 5000 meter indoor events. Lionel Messi set up Neymar's opener and Luis Suarez scored twice to give Barcelona a 3-1 victory against a struggling Paris Saint-Germain on Wednesday. After Neymar slotted home in the 18th minute, Suarez ducked and weaved through the Paris defense for his first goal in the 67th. Before ghosting past, PSG pulled a goal back in the 82nd when Gregory Wheel's long-range effort deflected off Barcelona's Jeremy Mathieu. Manchester United cemented its place at the 3rd spot and moved 4 points clear of neighbours Manchester City with a crushing 4-2 defeat over the Premier League champions. After 4 consecutive humbling defeats in the derby, United produced a flowing performance, recovering after falling back. For City, Aguero opened the scoring in the 8th minute. Later, Ashley Young levelled the score 1-1 for Manchester United in the 27th minute. Marouane Fellaini, Juan Mata and Chris Smalling also scored a goal each and helped the Red Devils claim victory. Michael Phelps lodged his latest return to swimming with a win in a 100 meters butterfly heat at the Arena Pro Swim Series. He won his heat in a time of 52.92 seconds with a late surge. Phelps returned to competition after serving a 6-month suspension imposed by USA Swimming for a drunk driving conviction. He's entered in a total of 5 events, including the 100 backstroke and 400 freestyle on Friday and 200 individual medley and 100 freestyle on Saturday.
Well, now it's time to take a look at what's creating buzz in the world of show business. A look at the latest flicks and news from other arts and entertainment.
More embarrassment for Sony Pictures after last year's cyber attack. WikiLeaks published thousands of emails and documents revealing some personal conversations with Downing Street and renowned Hollywood figures. Sony has opposed WikiLeaks' assertion that the material belongs in public domain. The cyber attack in November forced Sony to push the release of its controversial film, The Interview. A new role for 007. Secret agent James Bond, aka Daniel Craig, gets a license to save. The United Nations has appointed the star as the first global advocate to eliminate mines and explosive hazards. The actor will spend the next 3 years raising awareness for the cause and encouraging political and financial support.
An emotional tribute song to late actor Paul Walker has propelled the film Fury 7 soundtrack to the top of the US Billboard charts. The soundtrack features Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth's song See You Again. It sold 45,000 albums, 583,000 songs and was streamed 11.6 million times in the past week. The teaser of the most anticipated film of 2015, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, hit YouTube this week. Harrison Ford returns to the series as Han Solo after over 3 decades. The footage showing Ford as Smuggler Solo was released at an official Star Wars fan convention in California on the 16th of April. The film is set for a December release and is the first in a new series of the sci-fi franchise. Runway favourite Gisele Bündchen took her final steps on the catwalk, retiring after almost a decade in the limelight. The world's highest-paid model walked her runway finale at the Sao Paulo Fashion Week on Wednesday in fine white lace and leather gladiator boots. Forbes reported last year that the Brazilian model was still at the top of her game, taking home an estimated $47 million during the last year.
Well, that's a wrap on World Panorama, but as we go, we leave you with these visuals from Israel as it marks its annual Holocaust Remembrance Day today, with ceremonies commemorating the 6 million Jews who were killed by the Nazis during World War II. The theme of this year's memorial event is the anguish of liberation and return of life, focusing on the 70 years since the liberation of the Nazi death camps. We leave you with